And can I just ask, through the diaries, that there are sort of these lovely sort of stories of sort of the affection of the family. I mean, there's this wonderful story about how I think Hilary came up to Chesterfield with your kids when your kids were quite young, and that you were in charge of the babysitting, and obviously the accommodation in Chesterfield was modest. So you went out and spent £40 on a mattress, and your babysitting duties consisted of going to sleep.
I went to sleep.
That is
they got back
absolutely
and
right.
found me asleep, and the children looking to see if I was all right.
Everyone was fine. That was the great thing. But
and also that they called you. Is this your name in the family, Dan?
Yes.
Right.
Dan, because you name your children and your grandchildren rename you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so they called me Dan.
yeah, that was it was my eldest.
Yeah.
Michael
called me Dan. That's right.
Right. And can I just ask that I mean, I was in there for your maiden speech when you were watching it, because your name came up on the Annunciator, so everyone piled down into the press gallery to see it, because it was a significant moment. And what that showed to people is what has been remarked on, is that you do sound very similar to your father. What do you...
I reckon it's the genes, you know. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't bother me, and I really don't think about it. I just get on.
But he does have this terrible habit of
God.
waving his hands about in the speech. I've tried to put him off it many times. It's never works.
It's a very good way of making a point, as you know. And if there's any more of that, there'll be retaliation on the hand gestures.
Because I think
when we want to make fun of you as kids, we start doing this. This is one of Dad's hand gestures, which we occasionally describe as brushing away the inconvenient fact in argument. Okay.
Somebody from the News of the World once came up to me and said, "We've heard a rumour that you've got Parkinson's disease." I survived that one, I think.
Because I think that there's a line, is it in the later diaries, that Peter Mandelson came up to you?
Oh yes, I was going to mention
that is true. He did come up to me. Yes, that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
And he gave me some advice, and I have to say I paid no attention whatsoever. And it doesn't seem to have done me any harm.
Well, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, we don't know yet.
Right. Yeah. And can I just ask, sort of, on the relationship between you, that obviously you have, you know, enormous affection, enormous respect, but politically you are on different parts of the spectrum. I mean, your sort of programme for the deputy leadership is not quite taken from the...
I wouldn't expect that, no.
Right.
I only give advice when I'm asked, like every good father.
Yeah. But how does one regard that? Is that just simply that it's different times, or for all the affection, can one say that you genuinely are different people?
When I've been you know, one of the most important things I learned is you should you know, weigh up your experience, reflect, listen, form a view, and say what you think.
Yeah.
And I say what I think, and Dad says what he thinks, and that's.
But you see, my dad in 1951, I'd been in Parliament 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And there was a debate in the Oxford Union.
Yeah.
And the motion was that this House believes that British policy is too dependent on the United States.
Yeah.
And my dad supported it. And I opposed it.
He spoke against it. So they went.
So I said, we quote that to each other. Because you see, I tell you what, politics is a complex process. To begin with, it begins on the streets.
Yeah.
I mean, the campaign for trade union began on the streets at top part of martyrs.
Yeah.
The Chartists, suffragettes began on the streets. The campaign against apartheid began on the streets.
Yeah.
And what Parliament is a buckle between the streets and the statute book.
Yeah.
Between the demonstrations and Downing Street.
Yeah.
It's a buckle.
Yeah.
And I've been in the position of a cabinet minister for 11 years, and I know when you get there, it's never as easy as you think.
Yeah.
And now that I'm free, I campaign on the issues, hoping that in the end those issues will permeate through.
Yeah.
And they do, and it's a continual process. I did a Labour Party dinner last night in Brent, and we were talking about this, and someone was saying, well, we don't seem to have much influence on what the government is doing. And I said, well, hang on a minute, because you go back and you will find the first Labour Party conference resolution that called for a minimum wage. You will find the first conference resolution that called for improved childcare, for a Human Rights Act, for devolution for Scotland and Wales and London. You will find the first...
For health service, way back.
Well, you go back further in time, you'll find that. For more help for poor pensioners, all of those things. And these are little seeds, these are little ideas that are planted, and they come from the root that, Dad, you've been talking about, and eventually politics gets the message. And I think if you take a longer-term historical view, you do see this as a process in which, in the end, people do have an enormous influence on our society, our world, and you can change things. And that's one of the most important lessons I have learned, is you can change things for the better, one. Two, the people who are to be most prized and valued and supported are people who are trying to do that, making a contribution. It can be in a small way or in a big way, and that actually gives you great strength against cynicism. Because frankly, I have no time for it at all. Because it's really, when people say I'm cynical about politics, I say, well, that's very interesting. What do you do with your cynicism? Do you take it to work with you in the morning? Do you keep it in a cupboard at home? Do you have a conversation with it at night? What does cynicism have to offer us in the world? The answer is absolutely nothing. And in marked contrast to that is the hope and encouragement. You take the Make Poverty History campaign, which obviously I played a small part in supporting. You know, what was that all about? What is that all about? It's people saying, come on, you can do this. We can change the world. And we've seen the result of that. And so we march in Glen Eagles, the summit meets, here we are 2 years later. For 22 of the world's poorest countries, every penny in debt they owed on the 1st of July 2005 has been written off. Now, don't tell me that politics doesn't change anything. You bet it changes things. Can we have some more of it, please? Thank you very much.